It's finally here, the World Cup is ready to start, and it's starting with our by now almost traditional opening in the United States. With the opening exact crosses and the USCX underway, we're getting an understanding of who stands where and what we can roughly expect in Waterloo this weekend. Last year's opening rounds were largely a stage for Lucinda Brandt and Marianne Vos to prove that they were a level above anybody else, with Denise Betsema, Clara Honsinger and Blanca Vas all making minor cameos. A highly exciting start to a pretty decent season of racing. This year Vos has decided against travelling to the USA. The Rainbow Bands will have to wait a little while. This means that Lucinda Brandt is the big favourite for both races. The European champion has 2 crosses under her belt so far and has finished second on debut in Beringen and then won in Möhlebeker last weekend. Her closest rival in both of those races has been the youngster Fem van Empel. The 20-year-old is officially off to Jumbo-Visma at the turn of the year and looks to be ready to make the step up to the absolute pinnacle of cross. Denise Betsema as ever looks solid too. Expect those 3 to face off for most victories. Annemarie Worst has meanwhile chosen a completely different path. She's headed to the USA very early, no doubt influenced by her partner Vincent Bastard's love for the country. Worst has dominated the early USCX rounds, winning 4 in 4. The last rider worth mentioning is Clara Honsinger. The home rider will no doubt be hoping for some muddier racing as she makes her season debut in Waterloo. This will also be the outright debut in Cyclocross for EF Tibco Silicon Valley Bank. Don't expect the American to be right near the front yet, but it'll be interesting to see where she stands going forward in the next few weeks. Outside of Vos, there are a few other absentees. Blanca Vas has raced and won a few crosses over in Czechia, but seems to have decided against travelling. She'll be racing in the Toy Toy Cup instead. Sanne Kant has also chosen not to make the trip over, meaning there are no Belgian women. And finally, Magali Rochette won't be racing. She's been struggling for form and been dealing with a lot of injuries and illnesses throughout the off-season, so she's not where she really needs to be, and has therefore decided that she's not fit enough now and is choosing to prioritise the rest of the season, which is probably the smart thing to do. Over on the men's side, it's likely to be a very, very Belgian affair. Paul Sauzen duo Elie Iserbyt and Michael van Toerenhout have traded the top 2 spots between them in the early races of the year. I imagine it'll be pretty similar in the US. Lars van der Haar has been generally the only one close. The Dutchman, however, has chosen to skip round 2 in Fayetteville. He'll only be racing in Waterloo. Laurens Sweeck, with his new Crayland team, will be hoping to impress against his former teammates as well. And after those big 4, the start list starts to deteriorate a little bit. Thibaut Nys is probably one of the next most exciting names on the list, and I'd also give a little shout out to Felipe Nystrom, everyone's favourite Costa Rican, who is on the start list once again. Among the missing names are of course Van der Poel, Van Aert and Pidcock, who are all starting their season later. Quinten Hermans is also still busy racing on the road. He's on the start list for Il Lombardia this Saturday. Hermans' teammate, for now at least, Corné van Kessel, will also not be racing. He is already slated not to be going, but he has since also broken his collarbone in a training incident. The opening round in Waterloo is generally a pretty quick race. Held at the headquarters of Trick Bicycles, the course is not the most memorable layout, but it does tend to produce pretty decent racing. The course seems to be pretty much the same as last year. Its big main feature is the Trek Factory Hill. The steep hill at the back end of the course was a running section in the wet last year, but when it's dry, it's just about rideable. The other marquee feature, to me at least, is this little switchback section, which I haven't actually been able to find on the course map for this year, but I imagine that's just down to, schematic drawings and stuff. Last year, Marianne Vos was victorious here in the women's race, outsprinting Brandt and Betsema, whilst Iserbyt dominated the men's race, ahead of Michael van Toerenhout and an unfortunate Quinten Hermans, who crashed out of contention but still finished 3rd. Fayetteville saw 2 top-level crosses last year, round 2 of the World Cup in the torrential rain in October and January's bone-dry World Championships. Both occasions saw pretty much opposite ways to go about racing, despite the course being pretty much the same. Fayetteville has been compared to a racetrack. The whole course is very flowing, it's got long descents and fairly doable climbs. It's very much not a typical cross, but it makes for something slightly different, and the racing has been pretty decent either way. In the women's racing in the wet, Brandt was her typical dominant self, ahead of Betzemer and Honsinger, whilst in the dry worlds Brandt and Vos dominated. Sylvia Persico, who also won't be racing here in America this year, came third. In the men's race, Quinten Hermans took his only World Cup victory to date in the wet, whilst in the dry Tom Pidcock was in total control. Iserbyt has podiumed on both times here, and in his current form, I'd expect him to probably be the one to watch in the men's race. And with that, I feel like we've had most of the important things to mention before we head into the first World Cups of the season. The season is really among us now, and it's about to properly kick off, and I am so excited to see what this next year will bring. If you want to find more content like this, then feel free to subscribe, drop a like, all the typical stuff that you're always supposed to do. And I'll be back when something important or noteworthy happens that I want to talk about, which will probably be very soon. See you then.